Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:38 is the time. Matthew Lars is still with me. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Delighted to be joined now by the Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, that's Fiona McAnena, to discuss, well, a little bit of sanity creeping into the world. We've got a lot of insanity at the moment, so it's nice to have a little brief corner of sanity on the show. Fiona, thank you for joining us.
Good to see you, Julia.
We were planning to talk about Labour amazingly finally accepting that trans women aren't women. I mean, something that my entire audience has always known all along. But the thing I really want to talk to you about is Sandie Peggie. Now, explain who she is and the court case, well, the tribunal case, it appears that she has just won.
Yes, I'm not quite sure she's won the case. Two different things going on. So Sandie Peggie is a long-term emergency nurse who did night shifts at a hospital in Fife and was made to share changing rooms with a male doctor.
Women's changing room.
Women's changing rooms with a young man because he said he was a woman. And eventually it got too much for her and she said she didn't find that acceptable. He reported her and she was suspended, and she's been suspended from work since then, which was January. So she's been suspended from work since January. She was subject to disciplinary to investigate whether she was guilty of gross misconduct. And that is what she's just won. So it turns out, we just found out today that they held a hearing at the hospital in June, accused her of having misgendered this nurse.
Well, correctly gendered him.
Indeed. And also he had made accusations that because she didn't like him, because he was trans, that she'd walked out on a patient. And those are very serious allegations, very serious, because that calls into question her fitness to practice. She could have been struck off. All of that has gone away. So that's
never happened.
Indeed. And now she's back in the tribunal because while all this misery was going on, she brought a case against her employer and against the doctor to say, you are sexually harassing me, because making a woman share the women's changing rooms with a man is harassment.
But it is absolutely fascinating. All week, the news, we've had a story about how Greg Wallace was acting inappropriately, being sacked from the BBC because he would expose himself to usually women members of staff, OK? But that's definitely unacceptable. But absolutely acceptable if he had claimed that he thought he was a woman, for him to be able to do that in a woman's changing room, it would appear. I mean, this is the madness and the doublethink that we're in, that a woman should be forced to be in her underwear in front of a completely strange man just because he's grown his hair, put a dress on and says he's a woman.
Yes, and bear in mind that hospital staff, clinical staff particularly, have to come to work in ordinary clothes and then for hygiene reasons get changed into their scrubs at work. So she didn't have an alternative. She did her best to avoid confrontation with this man, but in the end, that's what happened. The defense this morning in the tribunal, which we've been hearing, is that all the other hospital trusts were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So this is happening.
So it's OK. But there have been other cases, haven't there, with more group of nurses who brought a case themselves as well. And there's a big expectation, hasn't there been, since the Supreme Court ruling a few months ago that, yes, funnily enough, the law not only is, but has always been the case since sex biological difference was recognised, that a woman is biologically a woman and not whether a piece of paper says it or whether, someone thinks it on a Wednesday afternoon. I mean, you'd have thought that all these tribunal cases would have just disappeared straight away anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's really the worrying part of this, is it tells you how deeply entrenched this belief system is, that people think that the only way to be accommodating of people who identify as trans, the only way not to discriminate against them, is to play along with them at the expense of everyone else's rights. Now, clearly, that can't be right, because we all have rights. And what needs to happen is to find some kind of balance. But yes,
but there was this idea, though, wasn't there, that a trans woman, let's call them what they are, trans-identified man, would feel uncomfortable undressing with other men. Well, yeah, for the same reason, so would a woman. But yeah, don't worry about the women. Don't worry about the women. No. I mean, it's not like women fought for decades to get these sort of basic rights. It's not like there's a reason why women don't want to be getting naked with men. Oh, and of course not. But let's put the feelings of a tiny number of men, let's put those ahead of half of the population's demands and rights and needs, and legal rights indeed. It is mind-blowing. It is amazing to me how slow, but not surprising to me, how slow the Supreme Court ruling has permeated. We were discussing, women's sports, and the majority of sporting bodies haven't changed their ways on that, and it's still ongoing. But it's interesting that the Labour Party has finally accepted that trans women aren't women, and they are not legally women. I mean, given that we have a Prime Minister who, until only, April, was of the view that about 30,000 women in this country had penises, that's quite a big change, isn't it?
Very welcome change. It's great to see a bit of leadership. That's what's going wrong here. The Supreme Court has given us a common sense ruling that everyone can understand. There's nothing complicated about it. And we really need to see everyone step up now and just do what they know needs doing. So the Labour Party has finally declared, the National Committee of the Labour Party has said, all women shortlists, women's officers, women's, sections, meetings are for women.
I mean, yeah.
That's where we are.
Well, that's what I've always loved when they talk about, first woman chancellor. They could have put any bloke in that job who said, I identify as a woman. And then under their thought process, they'd have had to have said, no, this is the first woman chancellor. That's the insanity. And the thing is, I both know the insanity in a lot of this and the dangers in a lot of this starts much, much earlier for an awful lot of people. And I know that you share a lot of my concerns about gender ideology. And it is an ideology. It's a political ideology being pushed on children from a very, very, very young age. Big concerns about new sex education guidance in schools that was published yesterday. And it's it's went bad under the Tories anyway. I'm absolutely furious with them still. But their proposals to ban lessons on gender identity, and also lots of the stuff not to be taught until children were, at least over the age of 9. We've seen some extraordinary things that have been taught to children at a very young age. But Labour has paved the way for lessons on gender identity, even in primary schools for children. This is a particular concern to me. I've got young nephews, and I've got friends who've got kids at nursery school where they seem to have a Pride March virtually every month. I mean, it's just extraordinary. The absolute explosion of obsession with gender identity and the teaching of this as a real thing. You could be non-binary or this or that, to young children who don't even know, 2 + 2 = 4 yet. I find very, very worrying and troublesome.
Yes, and there's been a huge void in schools because teachers have been crying out for some clear guidance about what they're supposed to do. So what we've got with this new guidance on sex education is, I think, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's good news that they've kicked out silly notions like, that everyone's on a spectrum from Barbie to G.I. Joe. Yeah. I mean, we've spent decades trying to get rid of sex stereotypes, and yet the concept of gender identity was being taught using exactly those kind of stereotypes. So that's one thing, at least, that's now been outlawed. But the draft guidance under the previous government said they shouldn't be teaching about gender identity at all because it's not a proven fact. They should be teaching everyone's male or female because biological sex is a proven fact.
Yep.
This guidance has watered that down. They've said, don't teach that everyone has a gender identity. Well, why would you even be talking about gender identity? So that is not really...
Most adults can't grasp the difference between gender identity and biological sex. The idea of, a 7-year-old can.
Yes, and then the other problem is they've not made clear, and we're still waiting for the guidance on what teachers are supposed to do when a child comes in who's a boy and says they're a girl. Now, it's pretty obvious.
Tell them they're not.
Well, it's pretty obvious that that boy cannot be allowed to go everywhere the girls go, because that's just a complete abandonment of safeguarding. It's not because the boy's a threat. It's because the simple principle of separating male and female in certain situations.
Toilets, changing rooms,
The basic, and you're not making judgments about any one person.
You can think what you think, but we shouldn't be encouraging it in children. I mean, this is one of the most damaging. It's child abuse. As simple as that. We call it what it is. It's child abuse. No child is born in the wrong body. No child is trans.
Absolutely. And we still need the courage and leadership, I think, from someone in government to say to everyone in schools, we safeguard children in part by keeping male and female.
Well, we didn't get it from the last Education Secretary. I doubt very much we're going to get it from Bridget Phillipson, that's for sure. Great to talk to you, Fiona McAnena. Keep up the fantastic work at Sex Matters. 12:48 time. Very quick word from Matthew Larser. Your lot are even worse than the last lot. That's the trouble.
Well, I mean, what the Labour Party's doing in this is abiding by the Supreme Court judgment.
No, they're not. Well, the Labour Party are, but what about what's going on in schools? Do you think children should be taught you may be non-binary, you may not have the same gender identity as your biological sex?
Well, I think that the most interesting point that Fiona made there was that we got to a stupid place in schools where you were teaching using gender stereotypes, gender non-conformity.
That's what trans ideology is. It's just about gender stereotypes.
Which is clearly nonsense. So schools will have to be compliant with Supreme Court judgment, like the Labour Party and like everybody else. Yes, I think schools are crying out for guidance, and the government is going to have to provide
I
that.
don't think any school should need guidance on whether or not you teach fact or fiction. Simple as that. Fact or fiction, that's all it is. And any teacher who wants to teach fiction rather than fact to children, other than as, literary, books, I genuinely think we need to sweep out a whole load of teachers from education system. I don't think these people should be anywhere near children in the classroom. I genuinely think they are a threat to our children. It's as simple as that, because they are telling them things that are simply untrue. 12:49 is the time. Up next, going to talk about the BBC. Is anyone going to be left after they sack everyone for saying the wrong word 20 years ago?